All right, take number two because I left on just idiot me left it on slow mo. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gear Change Show for a semi-live one. So I just spent like 30 minutes basically rehearsing this. So yeah, guys, welcome back to the Gear Change Show. Here for the half an hour of me just blabbing on about an automotive topic and you guys basically doing whatever. So I think I did a dry run, so I'm gonna do it for real this time. So, and I'm gonna soothe my parched throat, by the way. So we're gonna talk about the race that's coming next weekend, the Rolex 24, or as the Daytona Continental, the 2,000 kilometers, or the Daytona Continental as it was known back in the day. So the Rolex 24, what is it? What type of race is it? Well, it was known as a sprint race, and then it was known as the Daytona Continental, then it was known as the 2,000 kilometer, then in 1965 or 1966 it was known as the Daytona 24. And as the name implies, it is at Daytona, which is held at 1801 Speedway Avenue in Daytona Beach, Florida. And as the name implies, it's a 24-hour endurance race. So what is this race? Why do we hold it? Well, it's sort of the race that sort of begins a motorsports fan's calendar. It is the biggest one of the year, even though, in America, if you don't count the Dubai 24. So the 24 Hours of Daytona is a international carnival of epic proportions, and is run in daylight and night. Is run in rain or shine. There's no rain check for this race. They run rain or shine, even though they do red flag it if it gets too heavy. So, what is it? And you guys are probably asking, why do they hold a 24-hour race at an oval track that is usually limited to stock cars? Good you asked. So inside the Daytona International Speedway, so 2 years, for those of you, you guys can look it up on Google and Wikipedia, but Daytona was opened in 1957, and it was opened in the late 1950s, 1957, 1958, and the oval was actually one of the many big super speedways that came along with the NASCAR craze in the 50s after the sport had taken off. So 2 years after it was opened, they decided to open up the sports car course and kind of have it in unison with the tri-oval. Now the tri-oval, as you guys know, is for the NASCAR stock cars. The infield sports car course is for sports cars. Now the banked oval, the tri-oval, is about 2.5 miles, give or take. Is 2.5 miles and change, give or take. But the banked roval, and sports car course, when it first opened in the 1950s, was 3.8 miles, and as I said, they run on this racetrack for 24 hours, day and night, rain or shine. I don't think it's ever hailed or sleeted or anything like that. And they would do this for 24 hours, and the event would attract different people. It would attract NASCAR people, stock car people, IndyCar, F1, rally, any type of driving, rally raid, and stuff like that, and Can-Am, and road racers of all time, and celebrities as well, like Paul Newman and stuff like that. Paul Newman and different celebrities from all over the world. I think it's hauled in a lot of people, and the collection of cars is also done well. So in 1959, 1960, they held the race in the they first started just running some races, and I think somebody got the idea in the early 60s to run a little bit of an endurance race, and Dan Gurney actually almost won the very first one in a Lotus, even though he had to push his car on the line later to be disqualified by the regulators because he didn't go down the law under his own power. He could have just driven it down, and it would have lasted. But yeah, he literally got out and pushed his Lotus because the Lotus was a little thing. It's a little tiny thing. So, and then eventually in 1965, it evolved into the 24. And for those of you guys who watched Ford versus Ferrari, Ford actually did win the 66 race. I don't think they'd win the 67 race and stuff like that. So you're probably wondering, how did this road course come to be? How has it changed over the years? What's a 24-hour race? How does it work? So essentially, every year, the world's best basically converge on Daytona, usually in January. And they usually race for 24 hours and stuff like that. So how did this come about? How did they get the idea? Well, there's a number of races in Europe. There's the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, which has been around since the 70s. Then there was the 24 hours of Spa, which has been around a long time as well. And then there's also the 24 hours of Le Mans, the granddaddy of them all. And America's sports car fans figured, if we're going to test and we're going to run these cars for 24 hours, why don't we have a race over here in America to match that? And what a spectacle indeed. Spectacle indeed that is. So, there was different, over the years, the FIA did some of that. The World Sports Car Championship also ran there in the 60s, 70s, and 60s and 70s. 80s, it was more GTP and Group C type cars. And the track is a pretty unique one. Actually, I got a picture of it right here, actually. Just so I kind of showed this late in my intro video. So, this is what the track looked like So this is what the track looks like. So for those of you who are looking at this and like, oh, that's Daytona. Are they supposed to all go left? Well, no, because you guys can study that. So you dive in, turn 1, 186, 190 miles an hour, almost 200 way back when. And then you go into the International Horseshoe, which is turn 3 at the dog leg, which is a almost flat out chicane. Then you go to the West Horseshoe, and then you come out into turn 1 of the oval, turn 2, backstretch. And in the 60s and 70s, in the early 80s, there was no bus stop chicane there. So the cars would just go flat out. And the lap time that they actually set back in those days was 141, a minute 41. And this is when the cars were actually, and that pretty fast for cars back then. It wasn't until 1985 that they would actually add in the little left bus stop chicane, because the cars were already going over 220 miles an hour. So they had to slow the cars down. And as technology evolved, so did the concerns for safety. So, because it wouldn't be until like late 2000, late 90s, early 2000s that the speed started to creep back up again to the level where they actually had to slow the cars down. So in two, they actually held their last FIA style prototype race, and the Daytona International Speedway came up with the Daytona prototype class to run. Now, the Daytona 24 is run with different classes of cars, so you can have, and that's the greatest part of the race. There's different classes over the different years. They've had prototypes. They've had GT cars, GT prototypes. They've had touring cars. They've had dune buggies. Yes, they did have a dune buggy in 1970. Look it up. They've had Trans Am cars. They had street sedans that were going 100 miles an hour. They actually had a Volvo Amazon. They actually had a Volvo Amazon two-door car actually running out there going 100 miles an hour back in 1970. Pretty cool. So they actually would sit there. So people would actually bring what they had. So people would bring in the GT class. It would be Porsches, Ferraris, Corvettes, and stuff like that. Late 60s, early 70s, they would have Corvettes and Porsches and stuff like that. Cars that would last. And I think in the 70s they developed a 3-liter one because at the time the World Sports Car Championship actually went to the Daytona 24. Now to preface this, they haven't run the Daytona 24 every single year since its inception, because there was a couple of ones. So in the early 60s, it was known as the Daytona Continental, and so it was known as the Daytona Continental 3 Hours, held in 1962. Then it was known as the Daytona 2000 from 1964 to 1965. And then it was known as the Rolex 24 from the Daytona 24 Hours from 66 to 71. They skipped 72 because they did a 6-hour race because of the they did a 6-hour race because of the fuel crisis. They didn't do it in 74, fuel crisis. Then it was 75 to 77 was known as the Daytona 24. Then 78 to 83 was named as the Daytona 24 Pepsi Challenge. Sunbag 24 from 84 to 91. And then 92 to the present, today, it's been run by it's been run as the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Hurley Haywood and Scott Pruitt have won it 5 times each. Chip Ganassi's won it 6 times, and Porsche's won 18. Oh yeah, by the way, Porsches are really cool. Porsches have a lot of history. Starting in 1970, they've had those wins. So they had those big ones. So yeah, so you guys are probably wondering, now that I've and Dan Gurney, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, almost, yeah, so I don't think that there's any drivers that are actually currently active on the win. No, actually, no. Pablo Montoya is still. Scott Dixon are still around. So, and Philippe Albuquerque, who's going to be in it. So I forget who won the first one. Yeah, Lotus won the first one. Yeah, Lotus won the first one. And the last one that was won was actually Acura. Acura won it in 2002. I don't know who's going to win in 2003. Oh yeah, by the way, Porsche has more engine wins as well. 222 to Ford 6. So, and Cadillac's had 4. Cadillac's actually won a lot in the last couple of years. So, and Acura's right there as well with 2. Jaguar's won it twice and stuff like that. So, they really didn't start really counting overall winners for the 24 till 66, when it was held in February. I don't think it started getting held in January till 70. And now they were now the race that it was known as the International International Champion Sports Prototypes and International Championships of Sports Cars. It wasn't really known until the ICM, or the International Championship of Makes. IMSA really didn't take over till 1975. So take over the idea till 1975 and stuff like that. So IMSA is in that history. So as I've said, there's different cars. There's 200 mile an hour prototypes, and there's little touring cars. Nowadays, it's different ones. So now that I've gone over the history and I've given you guys a premise of what it's actually like, I'm actually going to spend the next 15 to 20 minutes telling you just what the 24-hour is and what it entails and how great of a story it is and how great of a race it is to watch on TV, having bags in your eyes after the whole weekend. So the classes of now, a lot of people who say this say, "Oh yeah, it's Daytona. They're going left for 24 hours." Now that I've shown you the track, how do drivers sit there like, "Oh, one driver can't do 24 hours. That's impossible." So they do what they call stints in the car. So the cars will have between 3 and 4 drivers. Some teams will have 5, just in case somebody gets sick or they need to have a specialist in the rain or something like that. So one guy can do a maximum, I think, of 4 hours, and I think the minimum drive time I believe is, I don't know, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And I think they can only do a maximum of, I think it depends on the class. I think some classes will allow you to do 14 hours max throughout the 24. And then, not that anybody exceeds that because they bring 3 to 4 drivers. And it also depends on what type of car you run. Generally, GT guys have generally GT guys usually have around 3 drivers. And some of the lesser classes usually have 3 to 4 drivers because of how physically demanding the cars are. They are today. And so, back in the 70s, there was prototypes that would go to over 200 miles an hour. There were GT cars that would rumble, scream and moan, and scream and yowl all the time. So today in 2023, there's to my knowledge, there's 4 classes. There's GTP, LMP2, GTD Pro, and GTD. And then there's LMP3, which is kind of a Pro-Am class as well. So I'm going to go from GTD to, all the way up to GTPs. So GTDs are basically GT3 cars. This is Porsche, Ferrari, Aston Martin, BMW, Lotus, and Dodge, I think, is in there as well. These are cars that have between 450 and 500 horsepower. These cars can probably attain 165, 170. And then the GTD Pro cars are around the same specs, but they're a little faster. They have a little more horsepower. These cars will go about 170, 175, maybe 180 if they're lucky. And they produce around the same lifetime. These days, I wish they would kind of separate it and stuff like that, but they don't. And then there's LMP3, which is the lowest of the prototype classes. These are small little prototypes that are chassis like Norma, Ligier, and these cars have a 5.6 liter V8 with 455 horsepower. They weigh about 900 kilos or 1,985 pounds for those my fellow Americans. For the Brits and everybody else in Europe, it's 900 kilos. Those cars usually do about 165, 170. So usually do about 175, 180. The LMP2s are capable of over 185, 190. And then I think the GTP cars, well, the GTP cars, I'll get to those last because those are the big ones. LMP2s are 4.2 liter Gibson engines with about 550 to 580 horsepower, depending on who you ask. And then the GTP cars, which are the headlining class, my favorite class. This is where, and I think in LMP2 it's Ligier, Dallara, and Orica, although a lot of people have Oricas because Oricas are the better chassis. It's kind of a spec class, to be honest. And then GTP, well, it's wide open. You have Porsche, BMW, Cadillac, and Acura, and a couple others. Oh yeah, and Porsche, because Penske's back for 2023. So the GTP guys can have any engine they want as long as it makes a total of 670 horsepower with gasoline and hybrid. So the gas engine will make about 640, and the electric engine will be making about 40. Although when they go over to Europe to take on the LMHs, which I've talked about in a previous video, that's Toyota, Ferrari, and Glickenhaus, Peugeot, and Van Wall, and a couple other ones. Van Wall, because Van Wall's coming back this year. Alpine will also be coming back in 2024. So the GTP cars are capable of over 200 miles an hour at Daytona. They're usually good for about 195 to about 200. And these are the top billing cars. And these are the cars with the Paul Pro lineups. So by the way, I forgot the structure. So GTP is all pro drivers, which means all the drivers are professional. They're not paid drivers. They've had either years of experience, or they're paid to drive, or they're paid to drive these cars from the factory. LMP2 is more pro-am. So you have a bunch of fast guys. So you have one fast guy, and then you have one or two fast guys, and then you have one gentleman driver who pays for a seat. He's usually slower than the pro guys. LMP3 same way. It's an AM guy. It's a bunch of amateur guys, and it's two amateur guys, and then a couple pros, or they can mix and match depending on what they want to do. GTD Pro is all professional drivers, so drivers that race all over the world and can actually race in the cars. GTD is more pro-am, so again, some gentleman drivers, and I got one guy who can go super, super fast. And they, as I said, they can't do more than 4 hours, at a time. And most of them do usually 2 hours, because Daytona in its current configuration at 3.556 miles is very, very, very physically daunting, because the course used to originally, without the bus stop chicane and some minor tidbits, was 3.81 miles. And as I said, the lap back when the laps evolved, I think cars used to do like 2 minute, used to be like sub 2 minute, used to do 2 minute laps. Now they can do it in 1:33, although I think the lap record might fall this year or next year, depending on what teams want to do. And it makes it pretty interesting, because not all the cars are going the same speed, so obviously there's a lot of passing. There's also a lot of errors. So race car drivers, and you got to remember, they're up for 24 hours. So if they lose even a minute's concentration, they can end up putting the car into the barrier. They can end up hitting the back of a car and damaging it, taking them out of the race, or spinning the tires if they're not careful about throttle application, so to speak. So throttle application and stuff like that. So there's a lot of skill of it involved, and teams have to change the tires. They have to refuel the car. If something breaks on the car, they have to obviously repair it in the garage, in the NASCAR garages, garages and stuff like that. So So yeah, there's definitely an element of there's definitely an element of danger, but there's also an element of excitement, because at the end of the day, the fans are watching a race that goes on for 24 hours. So anything can happen, and the teams will do what they can do to make sure that they cross the finish line on Sunday morning. For those of you who don't know, the weekend usually starts around the teams usually start their week. They usually do scrutineering and stuff like that. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, they kind of get prepped. Some of the minor series kind of run, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's all racing for IMSA. For those of you guys who don't know, IMSA means International Motorsports Association, or as it was known in the 70s and 80s, the International Marijuana Smugglers Association, because a lot of people used to run drugs when they were doing IMSA to field their cars back in the 70s and 80s. And as I said, there's driving talent. The driving talent is everywhere. So you have guys like Scott Dixon, Pablo Montoya, Oliver Gavin, and stuff like that. And you'll have celebrities like Paul Newman, and I think comedian Dick Smothers actually raced in the race, um, and stuff like that. So it's an international carnival. So there's different languages in the paddock. It's all American accents. Not a bunch of guys going, "Oh, hey, we're gonna go to the trailer and have a couple beers. Have a couple beers. We're gonna have a couple steaks. And we're gonna shoot the guns off the porch." Not like that. It's more international than you think, and yes, and stuff like that. So yeah, so the race is an amazing thing. Amazing thing. So, and the races seen incidents like Dan Gurney pushing his Lotus over the line, and Ricky Bobby style, and then there's I remember watching Tony Stewart's Pontiac Crawford losing its engine cover, popped up by blocks. I've seen Dale Earnhardt Jr. lose gas on the final lap, trying to do that, even though Dale actually ended up coming second in the Daytona 24 in 2001 with the Corvette C5R, and yes, Corvette used to race at Le Mans before they were given off to IMSA and their sports car series. So yeah, I'm thinking of actually, since it's actually Sunday now. Yeah, it's actually Sunday the 22nd. So yeah, it's Sunday the 22nd. So I'm gonna do a video. So the whole week is going to be just a kickoff of. It's just going to be a kickoff of me talking about the Daytona 24. I might do a lap of the track on either GT7 or on sports car. My favorite sports car project cars with one of the GTB cars. GTB cars are one of the Le Mans prototypes, as they're known now. So I'll probably do a lap and maybe tell you some interesting facts about the race tomorrow, and then kind of get this turned up. But I kind of wanted to give you guys kind of a synopsis of what it's like, and then over the race week, I'll give you guys because on Tuesday and Thursday, I will definitely be uploading more. I'm gonna do a vlog with everything, and I'm just still gonna do all my gameplay and stuff like that. So I'll do you guys updates on the race, what's going on, and what the news is like around the track and stuff like that. So you guys can have that, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts on the race and updates about stuff and stuff as it happens. So, although I won't be filming any footage because Fox or whoever broadcasts would sue me for that. So, so yeah, I hope you guys learned something today, but you guys will be learning more about this race over the next 6 days, 7 days. So, so yeah, I hope this week is a good one. So let's kick off Daytona Speed Weeks, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I'm not going to do it in slow-mo like I did last time. I'm going to actually show you guys that. It's actually pretty funny. So, yeah. You guys won't like that. So yeah. So yeah, later today, I'm going to do interesting facts about Daytona and then post that. And then Monday, I might do, I think Monday I might post a lap, because I'm going to give the Alfa Romeo project a rest. And I'm going to finish that the week after Daytona. So, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If it'll like, subscribe if you guys are interested in more content. I will see you guys later. And this has been kind of a beginning or an intro of the 24 hours of Daytona. So hope you guys join me for this week. I'll definitely humor you guys. All right, peace out.